The two main issues illuminating the Take Canada Back movement are the two pillars of Western civilization: our sovereignty as a country and our right to free speech as a country. Since ancient Rome, ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, ancient Greece, you look at their laws that they lived by again and again. Sovereignty and freedom of speech are the two pillars that built the greatest civilizations humanity has ever seen, that brought us the greatest scientific discoveries that allow us to live in the world that we live in today, again and again and again. Sovereignty, so that a nation knows it is not governed by outside forces, which is exactly what's happening in Canada today. And free speech, so that authority can be challenged. The best ideas always win out. But these are historical anomalies. People need to understand that the attack that we're seeing from the left today, from the woke ideologues who say that believing in borders make you some sort of a racist or a xenophobe, and that free speech leads to hateful people who shouldn't be heard from, allowed to make their voices heard. These are attacks we've seen again and again and again. But again and again and again, we win out. Because the greatest civilizations that mankind has ever created have been built on the ability for people who have opinions you don't agree with to express themselves. We see time and time again, the greatest thinkers were absolutely crucified at the time that they were saying their opinions. It's very infrequent that you see the person who winds up being right, being popular at their time. As a matter of fact, if you are with the crowd, if the vast majority of the population agrees with you, historically, the likelihood that you are in the right is incredibly low, which is why free speech is such a cherished piece of Canadian history. If you're not allowed to speak your mind, you truly are a S to the nation. Whether you agree with somebody's opinions or not, outside of a very small limit, such as going into a movie theater and yelling fire, people need to have the ability to speak their minds. And that's what we see under direct attack today in Canada through Bill C63, which is the most extreme attack on free speech, in my opinion, we have seen in Western civilization in the past century. A bill that sees the creative bureaucratic commissions like the Digital Safety Commission that would have the ability to lock you up, not for anything you've said. First and foremost, people should not be being locked up for what they said, but Bill C63 goes even further, wants to lock people up not even for what they said, but for the threat of what they may say. The ability to put people under house arrest, give them an ankle bracelet because of what they may say, tattletaling among citizens about what somebody may say. It's an extremist attack on free speech, expanding the definition of hate speech to fomentation of vilification and detestation. The liberal ideologues know that they cannot win the debate, so what do? They try to toss the whole board over and say, we can't win in an argument, so what we're going to do is we're going to name call and we're going to throw our opposition in jail. But the Canadian people are smart. We're a smart, brave, tough people that are not going to allow the foundations of our incredible country to be shut down by an ideology with its hateful critical race theory, and this same ideology that tells us that a man can become a woman and a woman can become a man. This is the wacky ideology that is going to ultimately be thrown into the dustbin of history, not free speech and sovereignty. So Bill C63 absolutely cannot be allowed to pass. It would be the death knell to free speech in Canada, threatening lifetime imprisonment for so-called hate speech in this beautiful country. These are not Canadian values. These are not Canadian values whatsoever. I will defend your right to make your argument no matter how much I disagree with it. That's what makes this country great. And then our sovereignty. Canadians have not been gaslit on any issue more than they have their sovereignty. You're yelled, if you say anything about immigration, you're yelled at. You're a racist, you're a xenophobe. Read a book. If you do not have borders, the law falls away. your ability to govern yourselves as a country falls away. And that's exactly what we're seeing in Canada. We're seeing skyrocketing housing prices. 70,000 Canadians dying needlessly a year because they can't get the health care that they need. And a large part of this issue is because we're allowing unprecedented numbers of immigrants, not to speak anything of the cultural impact. 1.5 million people, many people from very different cultures, from Afghanistan, from different African countries, from India. And we can't withstand this. The primary responsibility of the Canadian government is to look after the Canadian people. And we've elected a man who his primary responsibility is to look after the shareholders at Brookfield Asset Management, the WF and Davos. Mark Carney, nobody gives a shit that you own that through Brookfield. They own $37 billion worth of real estate in Canada. So your argument is we need another 1.5 million people in a year so those numbers keep going up. No, the primary responsibility of a government in a democracy is to look after the citizens who elected them. And you will not get as overwhelming a consensus as 75% of Canadians saying we cannot withstand more immigration. And the government continues to ignore us and continues to ignore us. But we're not going to shut up. Our ancestors did not fight valiantly at Vimy Ridge. For us to shut up, well, the values that they fought for and defended, they were fighting for our sovereignty. For it to be thrown away by some globalist, multicultural ethos that, as Justin Trudeau said in 2017, Canada will be the first post-national state. The answer to that is hell no. Canada will never be a post-national state. Canada is a free people. They were explorers who conquered the true white north. And we will not turn into some post-national human people, as Justin Trudeau would say. No, we are proud Canadians who refuse to disgrace the memories of ancestors who fought World War I, World War II, in order to preserve this great nation. At the end of the day, sovereignty, free speech are going to win out. Of course, there are many other issues: policing, the stomping of our charter and rights and freedoms, housing affordability, criminal reform, our hospital system being run down. There are many other issues, but the two pillars of the Take Canada Back movement are sovereignty and free speech, and we can rest easy knowing that these are the pillars of Western civilization. So this Saturday, September 13th, noon at Parliament Hill, I want to see thousands of patriotic Canadians out waving flags proudly, demanding that the ethos that made this country great is respected. We're not going to allow Mark Carney and some crooks in the Liberal Party to destroy Canada anymore. Please like, share, subscribe this video, join, become a member if you're interested in supporting from the ground up, helping mold this movement. If you're watching on TikTok, make sure you're following on YouTube, youtube.com/@FightForCanada2025. I'm over 16K followers, and the Canadian government is not a big fan of dissidents, as I just outlined. Canadian patriots are going to take this country back.